Well, again, man, thank you so much for joining me and finding time in your crazy schedule. I imagine October for the rest of your life now is going to be insane.
I think for the rest of my life, leading up to October, I think it'll start like August, September, October. Conventions as I can go to them, meet the fans, which is, dude, is one of the greatest joys of my life. I mean, meeting fans, person after person after person is like a drop of love and a drop of love and a drop of love. And at the end of the day, I've got a bucket filled with love. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It was cool finally meeting you in person at Flashback Weekend. And of course, at that time, it was actually when I was like pitching to Christopher Nelson and Sean Clark about the podcast network. So
Yeah.
I got to sit there and actually like quote unquote have a few drinks with you, and that was cool. It was fun to experience that with you.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's I mean, and those things are so crazy. It's so rare that we actually get to have time to connect like that, So I'm grateful for that time too, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm glad we get to do this. I mean, it's time is so precious at this point in the game.
yeah. It's the one thing that money can't buy. Right.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, so on the topic of Halloween Kills, got to talk about it because you are an absolute monster in that movie. You kill so many people in so many brutal ways. What was it like stepping from Halloween 2018 into Halloween Kills and just upping that brutality up like by 10?
Oh, dude, it was yeah, we characterize it as 2018 on steroids.
Yeah.
It's and the brutality. I mean, 2018 was a physical show for me. I mean, I did a lot of physical fighting. I ended up with a hematoma on my left glute, which made my left glute rise an inch higher than my right glute. I had from getting hit with a chair, I had a bone bruise. It took about a week and a half to come out. Several other injuries, but the mob scene, man. I mean, the butt kicking I took in that. I mean, let's call it what it is. It's a freaking ass kicking, man. I mean, for every time you see Tommy Doyle hit me with a bat, I got hit, 30, 40, 50, 80 more times. I mean, because there's so many takes and so many angles, all those kicks to the ribs, man. And I don't wear rib pads because I want to feel it. Like a lot of stunt guys, a lot of actors will wear rib pads. I don't. And the blessing of the guys that Aaron Armstrong, the stunt coordinator, brought in is that those guys are really, really good martial artists. So, I mean, when those guys are nailing me in the ribs, I'm taking it because I wanted that, that visceral reaction. So the whole thing, man, I mean, the whole thing was just, the ante was upped on the physical level and then the emotional level as well, man. I mean, there was just utter brutality.
Yeah. Of all those kills you had to perform, which one did you personally enjoy actually shooting the most?
Well, shooting the most is the mob scene because the blocking is so tight. I kind of pride myself in hitting marks, as an actor, as a stuntman. I mean, there's so many technical realities that you're dealing with. Like, you have to see your frame. And like a lot of times, being an actor stuntman, I mean, I trained with Stella Adler, Marlon Brando's coach. I had a private coach in the Royal Academy. I'm very confident in my acting chops, but a lot of actors don't work on their physicality. They don't work on stunts and fighting. And so, when I'm working with an actor, sometimes just keeping him in frame and doing all the other things I'm doing is really, really difficult. So the mob scene, for instance, when you see me get shot, boom, 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 and I land on the ground, I walked over to Paul, the camera operator, who, by the way, is a director of photography himself. But, I said, okay, Paul, where do you need my head for camera? And he pointed at the spot, and all I did was walk up and boom, I nailed it. I hit it. So all those, the choreography of all that fighting, all that movement has to be exact because those weapons, even though the blades are dull, you still put somebody's eye out. Those bats are real. Right. The implements I was getting hit with were real. So if people miss, you can get hit, hurt pretty badly. And so that was a few days of shooting the mob scene.
Yeah. It's certainly the physicality of it shows, and especially the way that you are taking the hits. I totally believe that those felt real because you sell them tremendously, and I guess a lot that has to do with you really feeling them.
Oh yeah, man! I think it's a part of the game. I worked with Tom Cruise back in the day. He's back end Far and Away, and one of the things that gave me such respect for him is the fact that he was in there getting his ass kicked just like the rest of us. You know what I mean? And, Tom Cruise does do his own stunts, except for a thing or two that, can't, where they can't afford to lose them for the show. And It's the same thing with me. I got stunt doubled on one thing, and it was because I couldn't afford a sprained ankle or sprained knee. And the guy who doubled me sprained his ankle. So, other than that, everything is me. I'm the one getting my ass kicked, and I'm the one who's kicking ass, man.
Is that scene that you had a double? Is that what, jumping off of the car?
Yeah.
And what, that was Doug Tate, right?
Yep, big Doug Tate.
Yeah, which is awesome. It's so cool that he's in there as well, even if it's just for like one moment. At least it's cool to see Doug Tate sneak in there.
Now. Yeah, it is, man, and he's a great guy, and he was really respectful because he's been there. He's told me this, like he's been there where he was the actor, stunt man, he did it all, and other people tried to take credit for it, or the internet went wild, or fans went wild saying that so and so was a stunt double and everything. He doesn't want credit for anything other than what he did, and and that's great. So we can give props to each other and let that roll. God knows where the internet's going to go with it, but that is what it is.
Yeah, and on that topic of the internet going nuts, Kills has started an insane conversation. The way it ends, what got us there, and how we're going to get to the next movie has just started a ton of conversations and theories. How do you feel about all the theories that are being thrown out there right now?
Oh man, that's awesome. I mean, it's exciting because it means the minds are working. It means people are engaged. So oftentimes when I do panels, like if I go to a convention and sit down and do a panel, and people will ask, is he pure evil? What is the motivation? What was your motivation here, there? I'm like, I'll leave that to you guys. I do what I do. I'll leave the conjecture to you. Let you guys figure that out. Maybe 10 years from now, I'll come back and write a book and tell you what really went on inside me. But until then, it's up to the fans, man. You guys get to make that up.
All right, well, I love that. I'm going to be looking forward to that book. I would love to see where your thought process was, especially when you look at your brutality and Kills. And speaking of brutality, I actually kind of want to talk about the first time we really see you start doing some beating in Halloween Kills. The whole fireman scene, taking out all of those guys, that shooting process and being in fire like that. How difficult was it to shoot that stuff?
Oh man, it was difficult and it was dangerous, and that's why it was the martini. It was the last shot of the day. I mean, the last shot of the show, because both in 2018 and Halloween Kills, we did the fire at the end because the very real possibility of my getting burned or badly injured, would again it would stop the show. And Attila, the first AD and one of the producers, told me when I got there that they had to look at over 200 people to find someone who could vaguely move like me, just to play the flashback scenes, the 1978 scenes, right. And they couldn't find anybody that moved like me. Now Aaron Armstrong ended up doing it, and I think he was so successful at it because he's an Aikidoist and I'm an Aikidoist, and Aikido moves like you move much differently. You glide in Aikido. You don't step, you don't kick. So the fire stuff, man, I mean, when we were down, when I was killing the first firefighter that fell through the floor, yeah. Everybody else is wearing full-on fire gear, has a mask, is breathing oxygen. They're all protected. I'm down there with nothing. I'm down there with a Nomex suit, but it's not soaked. And, and I'm breathing I'm bringing all that smoke and the fumes, but I had to, because that's the only way we could do it. So it was really brutal. And then walking through the house, man, the house is so hot because it's burning all the way to the back of the house. So I had to count the steps to the door, and I had to close my eyes, because if I opened my eyes, even an iota, I would have fried my eyeballs. Oh, wow. So I had to count the steps to the door. And then once I was at the door, I knew it was safe enough to open my eyes, but I had to count the steps to the edge of the porch because I didn't want to fall down the stairs and I couldn't see. So it was really brutal. And by the way, firemen are studs. Those Halligans are heavy as hell, man.
Yeah. So you had to do some heavy lifting in there for sure.
Yeah. Not to mention a few stuntmen here and there, spearing and.
Yeah. I mean, what about like the saw kill and trying to handle that and what goes into those type of practical effects when you have like moving machinery like that?
Oh man, I mean that's heavy too. That saw was heavy, and one of the beautiful. I mean, the movie magic happens. So we had, Christopher Nelson had set up the practical blood effect, and I go down and I'm cutting into him. We didn't know that the blood was going to spray all the way to the camera lens, but it did. So we kind of lucked out there. We were fighting, that fireman scene, we were fighting like ankle deep in mud. One of the stunt guys sprained a knee. It was brutal, man. It was tough.
Yeah, it's like run and gun filmmaking is this type of stories you're telling, just crazy, go at it, no matter what the setting looks like.
Oh man. And I got to tell you, dog, that, when they hit me in the chest with a fire hose, first of all, we've seen the horrible documentary footage of people being fire hosed. Right. It's not pretty and it's not easy. It hurts. Well, the first two times the fire chief nailed me in the groin, and dude, that was painful. It was painful. It hurt.
So I mean, I was thinking about this. That was literally the first thought I had when I saw that scene. If you get hit with the fire hose and you just kind of like walk through it, I'm like, holy, I mean, like the fire hose will knock you on your ass. So like, how hard was that thing? I mean, clearly it hit you in the groin. It wasn't pain or wasn't very nice. So how bad was that? How powerful was that hose on you?
I mean, it had to be powerful enough to, I needed something to work against.
Yeah.
So, we tagged it up by increments, to see, I needed something to push against, but of course they didn't want to hit me so hard that they, cracked my sternum and set me, tumbling backwards. So, but we worked on that. We had to work on it, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it worked out, right? I mean, that seems crazy, and that's why you continue to see all the promotions and stuff and people talking about it. And that fireman scene alone is just a big topic of conversation.
Oh man, it was brilliant. I think it was brilliant when David Gordon Green figured out for the end, because we shot another ending for 2018. It was a big fight scene between Jamie and I, and although she fights like a cat, man. I mean, she's a really excellent athlete. In fact, a little side note about the end of 2018, the scene that we didn't use. Again, it's really, really tough to work with an actor who's not had stunt training, but she's an excellent athlete, man. So there's in the fight, I was holding a blade, down like this out, and she would take the butt of the gun and swing to hit it. And the first time I was like, oh dude, this is gonna be broken knuckles, man. I can see it coming. And boom, she knocked the blade right out. 30 takes, dude, and she hit the blade every single time.
Wow.
I mean, this woman should be playing in the freaking World Series. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Wow, that's awesome.
He kept her eye on the ball, man. So, the critical nature of working in those situations. I mean, as we know, people get hurt, people can get badly damaged, things can happen. When you have fire involved, oh man, I mean, you never know what fire is going to do. So, there's a lot of safety precautions. I mean, David and Rough House, they did it right. Safety meetings, everybody's on their game. Everybody's looking out. I mean, it worked out great, but there's always that little specter flying over you of who's going to get hurt or how badly.
Yeah. And, on the topic of Jamie Lee Curtis, obviously you don't battle with her the same way you did in 2018. How much did you actually even get to work with Jamie? Jamie certainly seems pretty hands-on and wants to help in any way she can.
Oh yeah, she's. We agreed in 2018 not to talk until the end of Ends, except for when we work together. And we like each other. I have tremendous respect for her. In fact, we agreed not to talk because we wanted to keep this tension between our characters. She called me though before she went to the Venice Film Festival. And even though we agreed not to speak, she called me. We had a 45-minute conversation. In the first 10 minutes, she spent effusively praising me, and I mean, it was really kind. I mean, I'll share this. She said things like, this film is what it is because of you, because of the gravitas you brought, because of the power you bring to this character. And it's really nice to hear that from someone like Jamie. She's one of the producers, because frankly, you don't get that kind of praise. I mean, I don't work for that kind of praise. I work for the work. But when you get that kind of acknowledgement, it's beautiful. It's really nice. And so that's the only communication we had. She didn't see me. I didn't see her. At the end of 18, we did the photo shoot. After we wrapped, we did the big photo shoot with the poster and all those beautiful pictures you see of Jamie and myself. This time they decided to do it digitally. So they shot her and then they shot me. So we never saw each other the entire time of Halloween Kills, but we are going to dance in Halloween End.
Yeah, and we're all looking forward to that, obviously, and so begins the theories of how we're going to get there, especially with time passing. I'm really curious how we go from the end of Halloween Kills to the start of Halloween Ends. But obviously, but I we'll keep that a secret.
And all I can say is trust David Gordon Green. Trust him. He and Danny have created an arc that they're pushing the envelope. And dude, if you don't push the envelope, what are you making? You're just rehashing somebody else's story.
Right.
So I think what they brought to these first two, you can count on a culmination or a finale that's going to be worthy of what we've created in the first two.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a really fun trilogy to put all together and watch in one sequence and feel like one movie. So looking forward to it. Now it's got to wait a whole other year. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, we start shooting January 10, man. It's gonna be great. I'm training my butt off for it now, man. It's really I have a big family and we tend to have big holidays and big brothers and cousins and nieces and nephews and I don't get to partake in any of that. I'm dieting, I'm training my butt off. I'm not drinking, I'm just, it's 100% focused on creating, getting in shape to be able to do another one of those shows.
That's awesome. It's really cool just to hear how dedicated you are to the character. I think seeing how grateful you are and how much you love the fans is really important. And it shows on screen too, how much you care.
Thanks, man. There's a whole lot of specialness in this character for me because, Nick Castle did an amazing job, just intuitively creating this character based on what John Carpenter and Deborah Hill wrote. And so when he showed up in 2018, he came like 3 weeks into the show. We met. We have never talked about the character ever, not once. He came in, we were hoping, we didn't know what scene he was going to do, but he came in for a cameo to do one scene. And we were hoping we would inhabit the same scene so we could have a passing of the torch. And we did. So, because the mask is this mask, it's a hero mask, one of the masks I wore in the film. If you notice, like the cheekbones, and it's built to my face. It was molded on my face. So if anybody else puts that mask on, it distends. It's not the same. So when we inhabited the same scene, it's when Laurie Strode pulls up and she sees the shape in the window. That's Nick, because it was a long shot, so the distension didn't matter. But when they shot it in the mirror, that's me. So we did inhabit the same scene, and so it was like a proverbial passing of the mask, if you will. It was passing from 78 to 18. Now, flash forward to Halloween Kills. He's not in the movie. He's not in the movie at all, physically, but he's the breath. So when you hear me breathing, or the shape breathing, as he's pursuing his prey, that's Nick Castle's breath, which I think is very poetic because he is still breathing life into this character.
Yeah. I love the fact that it's still Nick doing the breathing. Anyone can breathe into the mask, right? But just us knowing, us fanboys knowing that's Nick, it just makes it feel that much more special.
You're absolutely right. I mean, they could be doing ADR and bring in any number of actors or whatever and just have breath. But I think spiritually, it's really important, that it's Nick. And we have fun with that. We have fun with that. Nick and I are really great friends. If we're not calling, we're texting each other, like every week, and usually just busting each other's chops. I mean, he's a funny dude, man.
Yeah. I am curious about some of the challenges you face in terms of shooting on Halloween Kills. Obviously, we talked about the fire and some of the crazy stunts, but when I look at like some of the technical filmmaking sides of the way David Gordon Green approaches this film new trilogy, you know, the first one, you have that super long shot that has you going from two houses and killing people all in one big choreographed scene. Is there anything like that in Kills where it was just as challenging and it took like, you know, all night to shoot just this what seems kind of like a simplistic shot?
I think so part of the mob scene, you know, we shot on practical location, but we also shot on a stage. And when we were shooting on the stage, I was on a Lazy Susan. So we had, you know, so sort of a dreamlike sequence. So that was the dynamics of that were way, way different than practical location and practical choreography, because it's in this dreamy kind of place. And yeah, that the you know, I think the lighting and you know, getting the angles and everything correct so that it would fit naturally into what we had shot on a practical location. And then the tough part of that was, by that time my left knee was swollen. I mean, my left knee had taken a beating, and you know, I've had knee surgery, but my knees are good, you know what I mean? And I mean, my body's strong, but my body had just taken such a beating by then. My left knee was swollen up like a watermelon, and I had to fight on my knee at one point, and I was on that knee for like 3 hours. Wow. You know, and it was just like, it was killing me, man. But you know, like, you know, suck it up, big boy. It's, you know, this is what you signed up for, man.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, but the logistics of that long tracking shot, they didn't think they were going to get it when they designed it. They thought they were going to have to stitch it together with CGI. But Stewie and I, Stuart, the Steadicam operator, I mean, it's that athletic thing, you know, when you're playing basketball or soccer or whatever, you know, when you're playing a team sport like that, and you have that communication with your teammate, you don't even need to look. You know, you can pass behind your back, or you know what I mean. You know where your teammate's going to be. We developed that. He played college soccer, so we developed that athletic sort of, because there were no marks, there's no way to communicate. So we would be adjusted each take by, okay, I need you 3 inches over here. I need you to stop here. Stewie, what I need you to do is, you know, so we got incremental instruction, and each time we did it better and better until we finally nailed it. And when we nailed it, Davey came running across the set, just gave me a big bear hug, you know, like, dude, we fucking got it, you know. It was awesome. So, but there were plenty of those times in Kills where, you know, where they'd just be like, dude, we just freaking nailed that one. We freaking nailed it, you know?
Right. Yeah. You mentioned the whole element of having the sound stage and building sets. And one of my favorite things to see, of course, was the Myers house returning, both in the flashbacks and in present day, with Big John and Little John, which is great. Love that whole sequence. Yeah. What for you? I mean, obviously, you care a lot about the franchise itself. What was it like being on set and actually like looking out there and seeing the Myers house on Lambkin Lane again? That had to be cool.
It was definitely cool, and because it was in a sound stage, you know, the subtle lighting that was in there made it kind of spooky. The really spooky moment was, we were kind of rehearsing some stuff, and before we went up into the house, David comes over, he goes, "Hey, Shape, so I got the rights to the song for the you know, for the, after we killed Big John, the Big John Little John kill, and then, you know, when Cameron and you know, and Andy and Dylan and, you know, all this kind of thing." He goes, "So take a listen, man." And he goes up and he puts Last Dance, you know, "Can I have this dance?" And he puts it on the phonograph, and we're sitting there in this eerily quiet soundstage with this house. And then all of a sudden you hear the popping of the record, right? And it was spooky as, man. I mean, it was just spooky, man.
Yeah, and you know that plays a factor in the movie itself too. So it's kind of cool to hear you talk about it, what it was like on set and being in the film.
Oh yeah. I mean, David has an incredible encyclopedic knowledge of music. So I mean, he has an encyclopedic knowledge of a lot of things. He's a brilliant dude. And so, you know, the choices he comes up with, it never cease to amaze me. I mean, he's, you know, that's why I you know, and here's the funny thing, like, you know, I read the script, what you see on the script, you're gonna get, but it's a fraction of what David Gordon Green is going to give you.
Right. Yeah, and I think that it is certainly something that shines brightly in what we've seen so far, and I think that's why when we do wrap up this new trilogy, I think it's gonna be pretty satisfying for all us fans, and that's why it's tough waiting another year for it, but so be it, you know.
Yeah, I think waiting 2 years for kills actually helped build the anticipation. I don't think 2 years would serve us, again. I think it's beautiful that we'll come out a year later with ends, and then I have a 3-picture deal. I'm done. David is done. Danny is done. I mean, we all walk away, and so I mean, what happens to the franchise after that? I have no idea.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think, Michael, at least in all our minds, can never really die. So concluding a franchise where it's all you guys will be falling in love with, it's the end of your story. That's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah, it's the end of our story, and and again, I have no idea. I mean, I can't speak to the screenplay. I can't speak to the story of ends. So all that I just leave once again for the fans and their conjecture.
Yeah, we'll don't worry. We'll keep our tinfoil hats on and we'll keep our theories going and see how it plays out.
Yeah.
I have a couple more questions for you,
Sure.
and then we'll let you go. So I am curious. You're going. I feel like Michael is very different in kills than he is in 2018. Although your movements tend to match, and we know it's you, right? Like we know it's James Jude Courtney behind that mask. But did you find yourself having to play the character differently when you stepped into kills? Did you your mentality had to change in doing that?
Not a bit. I showed up in the same spiritual place the first day in makeup in Chris Nelson's trailer as I left it, at the end of Ends. I was in exactly the same spiritual place, and I will be in exactly the same spiritual place when I show up for Halloween Ends. So when I showed up for kills, and the process was the same, exactly the same. We start the day, whether it's the morning or night, in Chris's trailer, and Chris picks an album. Chris and I both have a very similar taste in music, and both of us have played in bands, and so he picks an album that is going to somehow resonate with the day's work. I mean, it could be the Ramones, it could be blues, it could be David Bowie, it could be Taj Mahal, it could be anything, and that will set the tone. He started that at the beginning of 2018. We carried it all the way through Kills, and he and I both know that it's going to be exactly the same when we start Ends. It's going to be exactly the same.
Yeah, and that actually kind of brings me to my next question with Chris, because this movie is a freaking a gold mine for Christopher Nelson. I mean, he got to really shine brightly, and you got to see just how amazingly talented he is, not just with gore, but even just seeing Dr. Loomis, right? Like even just that practical effect, it's amazing. And certainly you need to go through a lot of effects, and I'm kind of curious about that side of things. Having your hand with missing 2 fingers the whole movie, or having the eye messed up and burning all over your face. How did that play a factor at all for you? And just even the time commitment of getting ready every day?
Yeah, the time commitment's meditative. I mean, Chris and I are good friends. We bonded immediately when we met, when they flew me out to Vince Van Dyke's studio to do the cast on my face to make the mirror, the mask. Chris and I bonded immediately, and it's been the same ever since. And so it's a meditative experience. It's a friend experience. It's a collaborative experience. It's a co-creative experience. I feel in many ways that Chris co-created that character with me because of the mask and the prosthetics he does, and his intimate knowledge of the character and of the franchise, and so it's there's no reason for me to believe that it's going to be any different in Ends. And his talent is, what I don't get freaked out very much, but in 2018 I would walk into the trailer and I'd see those 2 Sartain heads, and it would just flip me out, dude, because they look so much so they were so lifelike that I would walk in and go, oh shit, you know.
Yeah, it's awesome to see him really get to just go crazy in these movies, and I think that's one of the best parts of Kills. Is just it's a feast for Christopher Nelson. Just gore everywhere.
Wow. You know, it's too bad they don't. It's too bad they don't give Oscars to horror films, because I mean, you know, we're the badly abused, unwanted stepchildren that are brought up from the basement, you know, for entertainment for the drunk step parents, and then locked back down in the basement after it's done. I mean, you know, I don't see the Academy ever really honoring horror the way I think every other genre has the, you know, the opportunity to be honored. But you know, Chris Nelson is, you know, good God, man, and there just aren't people more talented than he. I mean, he's at the top of the food chain, dude.
Yeah, and yeah, on the topic of Oscars, dude, it drives me nuts. It there's so much talent that is being portrayed in all these horror films that are coming out, and pretty much if it's in that horror genre, it's just they just kind of dismiss it. That's why even when it's like something like Get Out that comes out, it's like, oh no, this is a thriller, so it can get some Oscars. It's a thriller, not a horror movie.
Yeah.
I would, it would be great to see more representation when it comes to the genre. Also, I mean, with stunts alone, I mean, should certainly be more representation for stunts when it comes to Academy Awards.
Man, I mean, you know, you wonder why they have neglected that all these years. I don't know their thinking, though. I would submit that the Academy is getting younger, and I mean, it was a staid old stodgy, you know, environment for decades, and I think it's becoming younger and more broadly diverse. And I think diversity is the key. You know, when you have greater diversity, you have different perspectives and points of view and life experiences, and so I think that's going to be the key. And you know, I look at the critics, you know, the critical, you know, content for Kills, and it's very clear that some of these critics just don't like horror. They just don't like it, and they don't get it. And in my mind, I mean, I was a journalism major in college, man, at a top ranked journalism school. You know, like, to my mind, you know, if you don't like the genre, you know, then what are you doing writing about it? You know, like, if you don't like football, don't go to a football game and write about it, man. You know?
Yeah, and it's always a shame when the first reviews of a horror movie come out. You're always kind of just got to expect that they're going to be bad, because it's always the critics that don't care.
And but then there's the critics who do, you
Yeah.
know, do like, who are fans. And for me, I'm a fan of every genre, man. I even like chick flicks, you know. I mean, yeah, it's you know, I've worked enough and been around long enough to know that it's a minor miracle when a film is made. So you'll never hear me disparage a film, because it's it's so hard, and everybody's doing the best they can. But when you have a genre that might not be your genre, like, you know, lots of guys don't want to see chick flicks, right? But if you sit down and watch some of the, you know, these beautiful films that have made over the years, you realize there's some doggone good filmmaking going on there,
Right.
you know. So, like, let's suspend the prejudice and the, you know, and the limited thoughts, and but I think that's going to come around. I really do. I think these wave of films are going a long way to changing that.
Yeah. And I mean, even seeing the slasher genre come back after 40 years says a lot. So
Yeah.
Now, so last question, just because I'm curious. You mentioned the fact that shooting the mob scene and killing all those people was probably the most fun for you. But when you sat down and watched Halloween Kills for the first time, what do you think was your favorite kill to see and play out on screen?
Oh, my favorite kill, hands down, is the Cameron kill.
It's brutal. Yeah,
man. Yeah, and Cameron took it like a man, dude. Dylan took it like a man. He had a stunt double, but you know, that we you know, rehearsed with. But Dylan freaking stepped up, dog. He took a beating. He took a beating.
Yeah, and yeah, not to mention it hurt to see him go. You know, Cameron was probably one of the weaker developed characters in 2018, and then he gets within 30 seconds gets to start shining brightly in kills, and you're like, oh, I kind of like this guy, and then he gets really messed up, and then it just you're even more selfish about it, James, because you twist his head off while looking Andy in the eyes.
Well, you know, I mean, I think the rub there is, you know, he's such a douchebag, and then he finally redeems himself, you know. And I mean, I'm just stepping outside of, because I won't talk about the, you know, the motivation of the shape, but you know, I think it's just kind of ironic, you know, how they wrote that, you know, he finally gains redemption, and but man, I just think it was a beautiful kill. It was a beautiful scene to shoot. It was so
Yeah.
much fun. And fighting Andy up there. I mean, you know, fighting I think you know that she was a D1 soccer player. She was a scholarship athlete. You know, her dad played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, this woman's athletic skills are like top notch. And so fighting her, man, she was awesome. She, you know, so that whole sequence up there with the both of them is hands down my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's probably mine too. So
I'm just really I'm gratified that the fans have enjoyed it so much and responded so positively. You know, we do it for them, man. I mean, you know, there's lots of movies that you do, or, you know, that TV shows we work on, you go and you do your job, and it's really, it's about me showing up, doing my job, doing the best I can. But you don't really think about the audience or the fans. You know what I mean? I worked on TV shows, you know, like, you know, season after season after season, like Babylon 5. And, you know, no one really talks about the fans or thinks about the fans. You just know you got something good and you're doing it. But everybody on this film and the 2018 and Halloween Kills really cares about the fan base, and they really care that the fans, you know, I mean, that's why David put so many Easter eggs in there. And that's why we work so hard, because we are all fans. And so we understand how much it really, really means for us to give the rest of the fan base everything they want. So I'm grateful to be in that position to give them something that, you know, that they like.